Hello and welcome to Amul India Facebook Live. I am Chef Savita Patil from Lexicon Institute of Hotel Management, Vagholi, and assisting me is my student Kenneth Xavier. Today we are going to show you how to make a Paneer Quiche. So for making the Paneer Quiche, we have taken 200 grams of refined flour, chilled butter and half a teaspoon of salt. It is very important to take the chilled butter because if the butter is cold, if the butter is warm, then it will start melting and we do not want the butter to melt. So we are going to add this chunks of butter and we are going to break them into pieces. We do not, as far as possible, we avoid touching it with the hands because the body temperature or the body heat can start melting the butter. That's why we do not, as far as possible, use a scraper, a metal scraper or a stainless steel scraper. We have to cut this till it resembles breadcrumbs or the butter is broken into very fine pieces. So as we go on mixing it, it will get divided into very fine particles. And when you're doing this, you keep on tossing it with the flour so that the flour partially gets coated with the butter. This same mixture, this is basically a short crust pastry. This same pastry can be used for making different types of tarts or different types of quiche as well. If you're using it for making a tart, a sweet tart, then you can, instead of salt, you can add sugar in it. So as you can see here, the butter is getting broken into pieces. You can keep on doing it. It takes a little time because the butter is absolutely cold. So that's why it will take a little longer. But your patience will help in making a good pastry. So make sure you always use chilled butter. And there are no big chunks of butter left in it. You have to keep on breaking it. You could also use a food processor for this. If you have a food processor, you just put everything together in the food processor and just pulse it for a minute, not even a minute actually. It depends on the quantity, the time depends on the quantity. So you just pulse it and stop mixing it when it resembles the breadcrumbs. So as you can see here, the butter is almost broken into pieces. A little more mixing is required. In this recipe, I am going to be using Amul butter, Amul milk, Amul cheese and the paneer. So here you can see it's still more finer now. If there are little bigger chunks, some bigger chunks are there, you can just pass it through your fingertips and then break them. But as I said earlier, with the minimum handling. So here, just run through your fingertips. If it is a very hot day, after crumbling it up, you can also put this crumble in the refrigerator for some time so that the butter sets again. In case if you're doing this and something comes up and you have to leave it, you can always put it back in the refrigerator and then continue working once you get the time. So now we can, these big chunks which you can see are not with butter, but the butter is becoming soft, so the flour and the butter chunks are there. Now we will put ice cold water, absolutely cold water, about 6 tablespoons of ice cold water. That can change. So if you are a beginner, you should just put 5 tablespoons and then you can add if required. Now when you are putting the water, just make sure you don't knead the dough, you can just quickly bind it. If you keep on mixing it too much, the butter will melt and there will be gluten formation. I'm sure everybody is aware of gluten. So what happens with the gluten formation is, can you give me some water? With the gluten formation, the pastry, your base of the pastry will become very chewy, which we do not want. Short crust pastry is, the texture is like a biscuit, which easily crumbles up. Okay, so now our dough is ready. I'm going to transfer it on my tabletop and we are going to, after binding, we are going to just wrap it in a paper, in a cling wrap, and then we will be resting it in the refrigerator to cool it for some time. So here you can see the dough is very nicely bound. As I said, do not mix it too much. So I'm just pressing it, as you can see, and then you can make a square out of it or a rectangle, whatever you wish to, and a little flatter one, and then we rest it in the refrigerator. Can you please put this in the refrigerator? And now the other elements of this are white sauce, okay, or bechamel sauce. So the ingredient that we require is butter, refined flour and milk. So when the proportion is 1:1:10. So 1 part of butter, an equal amount of flour and 10 times milk. So let us start making the white sauce first. Can you just clear this? I will have to move here. First we are going to be making the roux. So we take the butter, and take the butter, once the butter melts, we're going to add all the flour and just cook it for a minute. It starts changing slight color. If you don't have a weighing scale and you're taking the ingredients approximately, then you have to make sure that the flour is not very dry. In that case, it will form the chunks in the white sauce. Your white sauce will not be creamy. So after this, as you can see this, it started changing the color slightly. So first I'm going to add some milk in it. And then mix it thoroughly well. If at all there are any lumps, later on you can just strain it if you find there are chunks in it of the maida. You can put the remaining milk. The maida or the refined flour helps in thickening it, acts as a thickener. So when you're making the white sauce, if you keep it for a very long time and if as it starts getting cold, it will start thickening more and more. So if in that case, you can always add some cream or milk to it and make sure that you get the right consistency. You can see that it is boiling now, so the flour is cooked and you can remove it from the fire. Okay, so now the dough must have become cold. I will check the dough if it is cold and I will start rolling it and putting it in the quiche molds. So you can use any shape of quiche mold. I have these rectangle ones and I also have these small rounds as well as one which is loose bottom. You could also use a pie dish which is bigger, 6 inch or 7 inch diameter pie dish also can be used for this. It depends on what you want to make, how big quiche do you want. The quiche can be a smaller quiche or it can be bigger quiche like a pie, and you can make cut the wedges later on. So here, yes, the dough is cold now. So I'm going to start rolling this dough. Now when you're rolling the dough of the short crust pastry, always remember that we have to use a heavy rolling pin, a heavy and a bigger rolling pin, which generally we don't have at home. So if you're a regular baker, you can always buy one and keep. Dust with some flour. Don't use too much flour, and then we will start rolling it. Now when you are rolling it, if you want to roll it in a rectangle, you could always use a dough scraper for restricting the shape. And when you are rolling it, just roll it in one way direction. You lift the rolling pin and roll it. As you can see, it is cracking a bit on the side, so you can always take the dough scraper, because see, we cannot handle the dough too much. That is why after putting the moisture, I have not kneaded the dough as such. When it starts getting bigger, you have to always make sure that it's not sticking to the table or your platform, and then you can always roll it around the rolling pin. And so try to make it to an even thickness. I'm going to first show you how to do the rectangle. So I will take this mold. I think this needs a little rolling, so I'm going to roll it a little more. It shouldn't be too thick also, otherwise you will get more taste of the pastry. When you are checking the dough, always make sure that you are taking it bigger than the mold, at least 2 inches from all the sides. So what I do here is, I'm going to just take this and place it inside the mold, and you kind of, this is called as loosening the pastry. When you're putting it inside, you loosen it. Now the excess one, I can cut it out because I know how much has gone inside, so the excess one can be used. You can start doing the other one. So you loosen the pastry, this, and then put it this way. Make sure it is taking the shape properly. No, you can do the other thing. Make sure all the corners are properly taken care of, and then you can either use your palette knife or the dough scraper. to cut off the excessive dough. Take care, because this has a loose bottom, so you hold it properly, otherwise the base will come up and then you will not have enough. You may end up cutting more pastry, and which will give you a shallow tart. So this is how you cut the pastry, and the scrapings can be just kept aside. Do not need them, we can work on them later on. Another one we will do is the round one. So I have taken a bigger circle than my mold. See, as you can see, and then because the sides also need to be taken care of, so I have taken a bigger mold. Now while placing, I am making sure I am lifting this pastry up. You can keep it here. Can you make the smaller one like this? I am lifting the pastry up and making sure that it is fitting in properly, as well as I'm using my fingers to make sure it takes the proper shape. And as I told you earlier, the excessive trimmings can be always removed. Is a circle. Now what do you do with this? How do you handle it? All you need to do is you just press the trimmings together, all the trimmings together. I will wait for Kenneth to give me the trimmings of the smaller one also. Okay. If it is, you think that if the shape is not proper, you could just use your fingertips to bring it a little higher, and then you can cut it off like this. And there's a dough which we just press, and we will start rolling it. Can you do this for me, please? In the meantime, while Kenneth is doing the rest of the dough, in the meantime we will start arranging these. So there are two ways. We are going to bake them without any filling. That is called as blind baking. So when you are blind baking it, you can always bake it with some weight on it, so that they do not puff up. Otherwise, once they are baked, it will be like a puri, and then we will not have any place to put the stuffing. So what can be done for that is, either you can just take a fork, hold your fingertips like this, and just prick them all over, or this is called as docking in bakery term, in bakery language. Or another way is, you take, either you get small metal you get stainless steel balls, you can fill those, or you can just use chana, which is always available in your houses, so that this will not allow the pastry to puff up. I find this way better, because you can be sure that the pastry is not going to puff up, and you will have enough cavity to fill up the tarts. Now, before starting all this, I have already put my oven for preheating at 175 degrees, because preheating of the oven is very, very important. You cannot bake it in a cold oven. So I have already put my oven for preheating at 175 degrees. So here, as I said, this is an easier way of doing it, and quicker also, and without any stress. Yes. I'll give you this. You can take this. We can work on this a little later. Now, as I said, I am going to at 170 degrees in a preheated oven. So you have to bake them almost till they are done. They are baked 70%. Then the rest of the baking can be done after putting the filling. So here Kenneth has made another one. We can just put that also. So let us put some chana in it again. This is only for the weight. You can reuse it. If you are going to bake them regularly, you can just store this separately in one container and keep on using it again and again. So let us put them for baking. Can you please put them in the oven? In the meantime, we will start making our stuffing. So for the stuffing, as I told you, I am going to be using Amul paneer, some bell peppers, garlic, some thyme, salt and pepper. Okay. So since it is going to be baked again in the oven, I am just going to toss everything in the oil. I will heat, either you can take butter or I have taken olive oil. You can take olive oil, heat the oil and toss everything in that for a minute and your stuffing is going to be ready. Okay. So let's do that now. Sorry for the interruption. You don't need to put too much of oil. As I said, you could also use some butter in it. And garlic is optional. If you want, you put it. Otherwise, you can avoid putting the garlic. You can put other vegetables if you wish to. I am using bell peppers, but you could use, if you want to make a kind of a palak paneer quiche, you could just use some spinach. But make sure that the spinach water is completely evaporated. So don't let the garlic become too brown. In continental cooking, we do not brown the garlic completely. Now we will toss the paneer and bell peppers in it. And some thyme. If you want to have the Indian taste, you can also, instead of all these herbs and spices, you could also use some probably chili flakes and little more garlic. So the seasoning depends on your choice. As I said, I'm not going to cook it too much because it will get cooked in the oven again. Let us move everything here and we will add some salt and pepper. Here's a stuffing ready. You can keep this aside, please. Yes, can you please get those? To save on the time, because the blind baking of the tart or baking without filling will take a lot of time. That will take about 25 minutes. So I had pre-baked these, partially baked. As I said, about 75% baking is already done, and then now I'm going to fill them. You can see these marks here, they are because of the chana that we had put. So we will be now putting the stuffing, and also first you can put the stuffing. If you want, you can mix some cheese in this itself, or else you can put the cheese later on as only on top. Earlier I had told you that the sauce may get thickened, so here it has thickened a bit, so we can always use some milk in it. Oops. Or you could use cream as well. Can you please wipe this? And you might wonder why I have not put salt and pepper yet, which I am going to add now. So you get a nice creamy consistency. As I said, some cheese could be mixed in this, or you can put it along with the stuffing as well. Be careful when you're putting the salt, because we have added the salt in the stuffing, as well as we are also going to add some cheese. So make sure that you are using less amount of salt. Salt and pepper as per your liking. Okay. So now let us start assembling these. So for assembling, we are going to take the stuffing. Put it, don't fill it completely with the filling or stuffing, because there should be some space to put the white sauce as well, or the bechamel sauce. So put very less stuffing, otherwise the stuffing will come out of the tin, and if it starts bubbling out, and sorry, not the stuffing, after putting the white sauce and you bake it, it may just run out of the mold, and it can lead to the quiche sticking to your mold. So that is why you have to be a little careful with this. And as far as possible, when you are putting the white sauce also, make sure you are going to be using a spoon for putting the white sauce. So I'm going to take this white sauce and put it on top. If you want thinner consistency of the white sauce, you can add some milk in it. If you wish to make these in the mornings, what you can do is you can blind bake and keep them ready previous evening, and then in the morning you need to just assemble. Can you please get the cheese? The cheese is here. Oh, okay, it's sorry. So you can just take that white sauce and spread it properly. Make sure there is enough white sauce. It's getting thicker, as you can see. So if you think that, if you are making a lot of quiche and you think the mixture is getting too thick, you could always use some more milk in the mixture, or cream, as I said earlier, and then the consistency will be absolutely fine. This will be in the oven for about 15 minutes till the cheese is completely the cheese melts. If you want, you can just allow it to become brown. No, I'll put this with the hands, that is better. Can I get a smaller spoon, please? This has become a little messy here. I'm just going to remove that white sauce from the sides. And cheese. How much cheese you will put, that depends on your liking. But when you're putting the cheese, make sure it is not going out of the mold, because once it starts baking, the melted cheese will get stuck to the mold, and it can break the quiche when you are demolding it or removing it from the molds. You can bake them as it is like this, or you can put some more garnish vegetables on top. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to put on some of them, I'm going to put some bell pepper again, so that it looks good. So we could just place some red and yellow bell pepper. You can use the green capsicum for color as well. So it's up to you how you want to do the finishing, is up to you. And here I have cut some circles of the bell pepper. You can adjust and put. So I have some rounds cut with the bell pepper. We have just used a circular cutter and you can continue doing that. We can also put on this. If you want, you can save some pieces of paneer and sprinkle the paneer also on top. We still have some paneer, so I'm going to, on one of the quiche, let us put this paneer again. I will have to use the hands for putting the paneer and the bell pepper mixture. So we can do that also. Here, just one piece of paneer, and that can help you identify the product. So let us put this in the oven now. We can put one more here. Bread here. Again, this goes in the oven for 175 degrees for about 10 to 15 minutes. Now, why I am giving this approximate time is because the thickness, what is the thickness of your product, that can also decide the baking time. So that's why I'm saying it is approximately, and it depends on your oven also. So there are many factors which can affect your baking. So you have to make sure that if a product, a recipe says 10 to 15 minutes or 25 minutes, you have to make sure that you need to check in between also, because if you just leave it in the oven, either it can, and remove exactly at that particular time, either your product may be overbaked or it may be underbaked. Okay. So to save on time, again I have baked some of the, pre-baked some of the quiche and kept. I'm going to show you different ways of plating it. So for plating, just to add to a little more color, I have kept some things ready. Yes, you can bring it. You can keep it. So let us start plating. Because see, as you can see, this has a loose bottom, so it becomes very easy to demold the quiche. And if you have something like this, either first you can try removing it, and if it doesn't, you could just run a small knife around it. You can, if it is stuck somewhere, luckily this is not, but if it is stuck, you can just Very gently loosen the sides and remove your quiche. Quiche has to be served either warm or hot. This is the one with the paneer pieces on top, and on this I had arranged the bell peppers in a different way. It's slightly hot, so it's a little difficult. Now we will start, as I said, we will start plating. Let me remove whatever I don't require. The round one also. So there are 2-3 ways of plating that I will show you today. You could just, first, I have some herb oil with me. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just put the herb oil on the plate and place the quiche and just a little bit of parsley. Either you can place it on top or just on the side. This is one way of doing it. Another way is, I just have a plain flying off. I take a plain plate, I'll take the round one this time, and then to add to the color, just put in some cherry tomato on top. And a little bit of sprig of rosemary on the sides. I could just insert it or just place it on the side. It's become slightly, the cheese is set, so it's not going inside, but when it is out of the oven, just out of the oven, then you can insert it very easily. So here I could, but the stem also has to be slightly firm to go inside. Okay, and that's about it. One more here, one small one here. How you plate is up to your imaginations. Can I get the chopping board, please? The round quiche, the round one, you can cut it just for plating. If you want, you could cut it and you can place it like this with some beetroot salad on sides. Can I get a paper napkin, please? What you can do is, we have a small cutter here, so you can place the cutter as well and place the salad in the cutter. So we can just place it in the cutter. You could take a smaller one also, it depends on how much accompaniment you want to give, or you could just put a small portion of it just to give the color to the plating. And again some more color here and little bit over here. Can you notice? So these are the different ways of plating it, and as I said earlier also, it is up to your imagination how you want to plate it and how you want to serve it. But make sure when you're serving the quiche, it has to be absolutely hot. That is the best way to serve it. If not hot, at least warm. So this is Chef Savita Patil from Lexicon Institute of Hotel Management, along with my student Xavier. Thank you, Amul India, for giving us a chance to present ourselves on Amul